Welcome to SethCraft. A massive storm knocked out my grid power for 16 days. The first half of that, the house got really hot, over 80 degrees. It's hard to sleep in that kind of weather. And then toward the second half of that 16 days, it got cold. There were nights down in the 30s. And so I realized that not having central air was quite an issue. So I reached out to Signature Solar and I picked up the EG4 12000btu Hybrid Mini Split. So I did pay for this, and I've got a link to it in the description down below, as well as a $50 off coupon code. I'm going to do an unboxing, an overview, and a complete install, including the indoor unit, outdoor unit, and the solar panels as well. The first thing in the box is very important. It is the template that's going to be used to put this up on the wall. So definitely want to hang on to this piece of cardboard. Here are all the items shipped with the indoor unit. You've got the head unit itself, a drain tube. There is a line wrap. You've got some putty for the outdoor hole. There is a sleeve to go on the outside. The power cable, the instruction manual, remote with batteries, MC4 connectors, mounting hardware, and an Allen wrench. I'm going to need a few tools. I've got a stud finder, I've got a tape measure, and then I also have a level. To begin, I want to find where my studs are on this wall. So I'm just going to take my stud finder. I've got one here, that's a good sign. I should be able to use those two for my stud location. So if I hold this up, I've got one here and one here. Now it's also important to make sure there's nothing here covering up the hole where the line set is going to go through. So just making sure once again, there's nothing in that area. I'm gonna mark the 6-inch location here on the wall, so I know that's where I need to have at least that much clearance up top. Using the template, I'm able to see the outline of the indoor unit, which is the black line all the way around. So as long as I have this top black line below my mark up here, I should be good to go. So I'm gonna place about right here. Then I want to take the level and I can place it on the top here. Looks like about right there ought to do it. Put some holes in here all the way through. Also, make sure you poke right here in the center of this hole over here. The mounting bracket is located on the back of the indoor unit. I'm going to use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove a single screw, which is holding this in place. I'm going to go ahead and press those plastic tabs and get the mounting bracket off of the mini split. I'm going to take the metal bracket and place it over where I marked on the wall, so I know exactly where to attach this at. Now that I have the bracket installed, it's time to drill the hole for the line set. I've got the sleeve here, and I want to make sure that the hole saw is going to be big enough for that to go through. This is primarily for the outdoor unit or outdoor side. I have the hole drilled through the sheetrock, and I've pushed aside the insulation, and now I'm going to use a long drill bit because I want to go down a little bit from the current hole, and that's going to allow drainage to happen from the indoor unit to the outside. So I'm moving down, looks like it's about an inch or so from the center of the hole. Right here is where the hole came out from inside, which is good that it's not on one of these seams. I'm going to stick my bit in here and then just drill this hole out. Now that I have the hole in the wall, it's time to work with the head unit here. Now these are copper lines that are filled with the refrigerant, and so I need to carefully bend them out so that they are facing 90 degrees up here. So I'm going to very carefully grab hold of here, and I'm going to bend them out very slow and controlled so that I am not going to be kinking or bending those in a way that's going to be detrimental to the operation of this unit. Now, the drain tube, if I turn over here, is stored on this side whenever this unit is shipped. I'm going to want to pull this off. So whenever I pull this tube off, I need to put it on this side over here. However, that leaves this drain plug open on this side. So I'm going to remove the little rubber stopper on this side. There we go. There's the rubber stopper. And I'm going to put it on the other side. I'm going to cautiously use the Allen wrench that was shipped with this unit to help to push that into place. Now back to this side. It might be a little hard to see, but there is a plastic tab on the left side over there, and that's where this needs to turn back into position to lock down. So now I've got the power cord. It's time to feed this into the unit and get it prepared for going through the wall. So I'm going to take the cord and I'm going to insert it right in here into this metal piece. I've opened up the front cover of the indoor unit. I'm going to be removing this Phillips head screw right here so I can access the wiring on the inside of this. All right, that just drops this plate down. I'm just going to fish these wires up in here. Now you notice there are 4 wires. There's a black, white, red, and then green. And if you look up here, there's a 1, 2, 3, and ground screw up here. So those wires are going to go into that area. Now the first thing I want to do is remove this screw right here so that I can push the wires in there, and that will just prevent these from being able to pull loose at some point in the future. All right, so just grab out that little tab. I'm going to take the wire that's labeled 1, which is the red or orange wire here, and I'm going to put it over here on number 1. I'm going to move on to the next, which is number 2, and that is the black wire here. Number 3 is the white wire. Now lastly, the ground wire is not a saddle connector, so you have to pull that screw all the way out. And so just be careful, we don't want to drop this. All right, there we go. Stick that onto the green wire and then tighten that back down. Now that I have that done, I am simply poking the wire through the hole to get it to the outside. So nothing special there, just get it outside. All right, now it's time to hang the indoor unit. Now I have gone ahead and put some tape around the drain line, the cable, and also the refrigerant lines to help guide this through the hole. Otherwise, it's kind of a guessing game to get all those things through there at once. It took a lot more effort than I was expecting, but I did get the indoor unit here on the wall. This is what the line set looks like here on the outside. I am going to be using that protective sleeve and put some caulking around there and then use the putty to fill any gaps in. And as you can see, the drain hose is on the bottom. I'm next going to be turning these at a 90 degree to go straight down. Now that I have the indoor unit finished, it's time to work on the outdoor unit. This should lift up here. I have the line set over here on this side, which we'll get into in just a moment. Let's take a look at this unit before we get it installed. It does have an all-metal grate on the front, which is good for protection. It has the EG4 logo right here on the front. If we move over here, the input power box is right here, and as you can see, it's already got the location for the MC4, and you don't have to pull those out anymore like you used to have to. So it's also got the AC wire right here, which we'll be installing, and then over here we've got the line set for connecting to our indoor unit. Back here there is a plastic cover to help prevent the coils from getting damaged. Probably would have been nice to have a metal one there, but plastic is better than nothing. Because this is the hybrid mini split, it's able to use both AC and solar. So if you look over here, you'll notice that I already have my AC and it has a whip already connected. So this is basically outside the scope of this video. But what I did was ran 10 gauge wire from a breaker inside to this 60 amp disconnect. And so I can then, anytime I want to turn the unit off, I can just flip the switch under there and it will shut this off. I don't have the wall mount for this unit. I'm going to be using this plastic pad. I will try to remember to put a link in the description down below so you can get this pad. I think it was 50 bucks from Home Depot. So I've already got this leveled out. I'm going to pick this up out of the base that it's in currently and set this over on my pad. Now I'm going to be drilling holes into the pad, so then I'll have to pick this back up in a moment to finish installing this through the holes at the bottom. But for now, I can just get this set in place. Now I'm making sure that I have at least a foot of clearance on this side and in the back. The front has lots of clearance, and then over here also has enough space to let any kind of airflow around the unit. I'm using a Sharpie to put a line here in the holes of the feet, and I'm going to drill through there to put a bolt through and hold this to the pad. Now using a drill and drill bit, I'm going to put a hole right here in the center of this line. Go all the way down until I hit the other end of this. Try to go straight. I believe I can use a longer bolt with a washer. And that can go all the way through like this. For the others, I think I can use a much shorter one to get through there. I now have the hardware sticking up out of the base. So I'm gonna go ahead and move the mini split back into position, and hopefully I can get those tightened down without too much of a hassle. As you watch this video, if you find it helpful, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and remember that I have a link to Signature Solar below with a coupon code for $50 off, so be sure to check that out as well. The outdoor unit is now on its pad and ready to be wired up and have the refrigerant lines installed. I have the two coils right here, and I'm going to basically hold these together and uncoil them. I want to set the coil down and then slowly bend out these I can unroll the coil. Otherwise, you don't want to be standing here and try to unroll it, or it may kink that pipe. So we definitely don't want that. I want it to come down about 6 feet and then over to the outdoor unit. Any extra of this coil that I have, I will try to make even-sized loops and store it behind the outdoor unit. I'm going to grab the pipes over here and just slowly bend those so they are stretching out flat. And then I can hold the two of them together and just start unraveling. I'm going to remove the plastic cap that's on top of this refrigerant line. And there's also a cap that needs to be removed here inside of the other. I'm going to line these up. Simply thread them together. Now I don't have a torque wrench, so I'm just going to use a couple of crescent wrenches. I doubt you could hear that, but there was a flow of the coolant as soon as I made a good connection on these two. I have the other end of the coolant line right here. Let's go ahead and remove the cover off of the outdoor unit. Now there are some cotter pins we want to save. They are located here inside of the plastic cover. Now I've got the smaller line here. I'm going to go ahead and remove the cap from the outer unit, and then also the one here on the line. Once again, I heard that refrigerant go into this union here. Now, just like with the other line, I'm going to remove the caps and then get these attached. I now have all 4 of my connections complete to the indoor and outdoor unit. I'm going to remove the caps here found on these valves. They're not on there very tight here. Next, I'm going to take the included Allen wrench and stick that into the valve on the low side. Turn that. All right, counterclockwise. Open it all the way up till it stops. Don't go any past that. Then replace the cap here. I'm going to snug it, but not put it on there too tight. Like that. Now I can move up to the top valve. Same deal. Open that up by turning it counterclockwise. Snug that up. And now we check for leaks. I've got a bottle with some soapy water in it. I'm going to spray right in here and down in here, and then also do the indoor unit to see if there are any bubbles. Now that I finished the test for leaks by spraying that soapy water on these connections, I'm going to install this drain pipe, and this is designed to take the water away from whenever it pulls it out of the house, and I'm just going to have it go up under my porch. Be sure to place those pins on those refrigerant lines. That helps to prevent these from ever backing out or people putting a wrench on them. The next step is to take some of this pipe insulation and put it over the lines right here and here, and also at the indoor unit, and that will help to keep the lines at the temperature they need to be. Now that I have the refrigerant lines done, it's time for the final electrical. There are 3 more things that have to be done. We've got to connect the indoor unit to the outdoor unit. We've got to connect the AC grid power, and lastly will be the solar power down here. So let's go ahead and remove this cover to access the inside here. All right, there's not a lot of extra room here with those solar wires, so I'm just going to let this panel rest for a moment. Now it may be a little hard for you to see, but there is a 1, 2, 3 L and N on the different terminals in here, and there's also a grounding screw over here on the side. So what I want to do is remove the 2 different plastic covers here for where the wires are going to come into this unit. Got one right here and one over here on the side. I'm going to take the wire that will feed up in here. This is from the indoor unit. I also need to unscrew this connector right here, which will clamp down on the wires and keep it from going anywhere. I simply want to match these up. So if I look right here, this orange one is number 1. The black wire is number 2. The white wire is number 3. And then over here is the ground screw, which I'll actually have to take out again here in just a moment because it's going to have the ground from the grid as well. So I want to pull that loose. Hopefully there's enough space for all 3 of those to go in there. If not, I might be able to use this other grounding screw over here. These 3 wires are coming from my grid power. I'm going to use the black as the load, the green is the ground, and the red will be neutral. I've got some white tape I can put around the red so that I make sure people know that this is neutral. But as you can see, there are no ends on these wires, and so I have purchased some of these. They are spade connectors. I'm going to be using the 10 gauge. These will essentially go over the wire, like this right here, and then I use my tool here to crimp these. And hopefully that is sufficient. Seems to be, yeah. So I'm gonna get those done and we'll be able to put this into our mini split. I'm gonna take the black wire and put it into the load here. Make sure that's tightened down. I'm going to take the white wire and put it over here in the neutral. And lastly, the green wire is going to go over here to the ground. Make sure that's tightened down nice and secure. And now I should be ready to simply put this back into position. The wire is now connected from the indoor unit to the outdoor unit, and I also have the AC coming in from the house. That means the only things left are to connect the solar and then also to wrap the lines over here coming down from inside. But we are at a point now where I can test this out. The breaker in the house is now turned on. Let's flip this up here and go ahead and turn this on. The unit should now have power. All right, there's 24 degrees Celsius, so that seems to be on. All right, the fan just kicked on. I heard the outdoor unit start spinning. Yep, the fan is now going here. Yes, holding the up and down arrows for 3 seconds did change it to Fahrenheit. As you can see right there, we're now at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've turned it to cool here. So the house is at 67, but if we look in here, let's see, 56. I can't really get too far in there to see how cold it gets. There's 55, but yes, it is much cooler up there, and I can feel it really blowing good air here. I have very little power being used right now. We've got, looks like 580 watts. Some of that is my computer and a light. So I can say we're at least at 400 watts on that machine right now. All right, we know that cooling is doing well. Let's swap this over to heat and tell it to go up a good bit, like maybe 75, and see what happens there. Okay, it took a moment, but it now has turned over to heat. I can feel that blowing out here. So once again, the wall is at 66, and up here we got, I saw a 75. Yeah, there's a 75, 74. So yeah, it's starting to warm up, 79. Let me see for just a moment what it's going to get up to here. While it's doing that, let's check the power now that it's on heat. All right, now with heat, we've got 700 watts. So it is using 100 watts more on heat than it was on cool. All right, there's 90 degrees, 92, 93, 94. So yeah, it is starting to heat up. Now this is the Hybrid Mini Split, so I need to install the solar. I've got the solar cable right here, and I also have a DC or PV disconnect that will have to go over here on the wall next to my AC disconnect. So what I'm going to do now is build a ground mount without you. I'll show you what the mount looks like, and then when I'm back, we will put the panels up and run that wire and run this thing on solar. The 12,000 BTU EG4 Mini Split that I have was shipped with 4 solar panels. These are 410 watt, and they have an open voltage of 37 volts and an amperage of 13 amps. I can run these 4 panels in series to have a total of 148 volts open circuit. Taking a look at the front of the panel, you can see it is a nice uniform black color, and it also has the black rim around the outside as well. Taking a look at the back of the panel, you can see it uses these standard MC4 connectors. There is one on one side of the panel and the other over here. For the overall dimensions of the solar panels in this direction, I've got 44 3/4 from bottom to top. I've got 67 3/4, and if I look at the hole placement here, it's 55 inches that way, 43 inches that way. This is the ground mount system I'm using to mount those 4 solar panels onto. Basically, I have 4x4s stuck in the ground about 2 feet. It's got anchor bolts with some wood screws that are attaching the 2x6x12, as you can see going along there, and that has been leveled out. I have a second one in the back that is much taller, and then on the front I have a product called Unistrut. I also used some of those lag bolts in here just to get them attached to the 2x6 with some large washers. I've already got the spacing on there, so now it's time to put the solar panels in place. To mount the first one, since it's by myself, I use clamps on the Unistrut, and that lets the panels rest on there while I put the hardware in the back. So having this up lets me rest the next panel on the previous panel, and it makes it a bit easier. So let me go ahead and pick this up and see about getting it into position. These things are rather heavy. There's a hole right here, and I want to get that a bolt stuck in there, and then I can move this over and up a little bit. Take a washer, put it on there, and then get a nut. I take a wrench and hold the bolt here underneath the panel, and then I use a socket to ratchet the nut in place. In my order from Signature Solar, I got this PV array DC isolator. Basically, it's just a shut-off switch to turn the solar off going to the mini split. I'm going to mount this box right here on my concrete block, and I've got a masonry bit. I'm going to put holes in the 4 corners. I have 40 foot of 1-inch conduit that I already had glued together, and I thought it'd be a great time to repurpose this. I've also got my 10 gauge solar wire in both red and black. I'm going to be feeding this through this conduit down to that disconnect box. I now have my solar wires here in my disconnect box. There's no power coming to these because it's not hooked up to the solar panels yet. So let's go ahead and wire up this little disconnect box. So if you look really close, there's a 1 on this one and a 2 on this one over here. So like the lowest one, and then the next is 3 and 4. So those are the 2 I'm going to be hooking up to my wires here. The negative wire I'm going to bring up into number 3. And now I'm going to move down to the bottom where I have my outgoing wire. And then lastly, the black wire is going to go into number 4. And that is how simple it is. I have 2 tasks left before the solar power can be put to the mini split. Number 1 is putting in a ground rod and linking all these panels together to this rod so that I have earth ground on my panels. The next thing to do is to wire my panels in series, which means positive to the negative of the next panel, positive, negative, positive, negative. So I have 2 wires. One's positive, one's negative, of the whole array. The lighting is not great for you here, but let's go ahead and work with it. This is the positive wire going down to my disconnect box, and this is a positive wire on one of the last solar panels. So I'm going to connect these 2 together. So now I've got the overall positive, which goes down to my disconnect at the mini split. Next, I have the negative of that first panel, and I'm going to be attaching that to the positive of the next panel after that. So positive to negative, positive to negative. I'm going to continue that trend all the way back to the first panel. I'm now down to the last 2 connections. I'm going to pull the stoppers out of the mini split, and if you look closely, it's got a negative here and a positive here. It also has it on the mini split in the back there. It's a little hard to see. So my disconnect is still disconnected, so it shouldn't be any kind of spark or anything as I get these attached. There we go. All right, let's go turn the breaker on and turn the mini split on. For the sake of seeing this only work off of solar, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the power from the grid, and then we're going to turn on the solar power. Push the power button. 75 in here. Let's see what we get on this mini split. There we go. Took it a moment. I'm going to put it on cool. Drop this temperature down to like 67 degrees. There we go. So this is operating completely on solar power right now. Air is now blowing. Very cool. And if you look up here, it's got the solar power logo, which means it's running off of solar power. The outdoor unit is very quiet. Let me turn the mic around so you can hear just how quiet this is. So as you can tell, it is very quiet. I have been running this mini split now for over a month, And I can say for my 1900 square foot house, it keeps it plenty warm if the temperature is about 40 degrees and above. The heat though, I've noticed that if the outside temperature drops below about 40, 35 or 40, then this is not enough to keep the whole house from getting cold. But it is definitely a good thing to have in the spring and fall. In the summertime, I feel like this will be all I need for most days to keep it at a cool temperature. Thanks for watching. I'm Seth with the SethCraft Workshop, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.